Hi folks, Surly here. Another day, another Remington. This time it comes in long boy version. That's right, this is the Remington Revolving Carbine by Uberti. I have this one equipped with a 45 Colt conversion cylinder, but it also takes cap and ball. Stick around. Alright, so here I've got the rifle on the table here in its box. So when you receive this, it'll come in a big giant Uberti box like this. Let's open her up and take a look. So, she'll be wrapped in plastic. I'll go ahead and take the rifle out. I'll set it aside for now and talk a little bit about what else comes in the box. First, you get a little note warning you to hold it like this when firing, not like this, for safety reasons. Get a Uberti catalog, and you get their usual black powder revolver manual. So, back to this really quickly here. It's important to hold the rifle like so, with both hands behind the front of the cylinder when firing. This way you don't get any hot gases spraying out onto your hands or forearm like here might happen. So that's actually pretty important for safety reasons to hold the rifle that way, even though it's a little bit awkward at first. So let's get the gun unwrapped. And of course, I've already opened this, but when it ships to you, it'll come packed in the usual shipping or packing grease or preservative grease. You'll have to clean off the gun when you first unpackage it. And here again, I've got the cap and ball cylinder installed at the moment, just for this kind of demo, I suppose. But it's not too long. It's about a yard long, 18-inch barrel. And really, it's just an 1858 Remington with a stock and a longer barrel. Everything else is roughly the same, and of course, rifle sights as well. You've got a nice set of buckhorn sights there. And the front sight is also taller and a little bit nicer profile than on the pistol. So that's really the only difference. Mechanically, it's exactly the same. Internally, it's an 1858 Remington. So it even takes the same cylinders between rifle and pistol. So it's a very, very similar design. Now, really, these were released after the end of the Civil War. Remington had a whole lot of stock still of spare parts for their pistols that were produced under contract for the Army and so on. And they needed to get rid of those parts. And at the time, they were coming up with a new rifle design that was a single shot that used this exact stock. So they just took that stock that they had, that they were already producing for another rifle, and they attached it to essentially an extended 1858, for which they had a ton of spare parts laying around. So it was really just an attempt to monetize and get rid of a lot of spares. These were marketed as kind of hunting rifles, actually, deer rifles, if you can believe it. And while this one's in .44 caliber, the bulk of these that were sold back in the 1860s through 1870s, really 1866 through the late 1870s, were sold in .36 caliber. Some of these also came with a conversion cylinder when early rimfire cartridges came about, and that conversion cylinder is very, very similar to the modern Howell conversion cylinders, or Taylor's conversion cylinders that you can find, which we have for this rifle. So kind of an interesting piece, but it didn't sell very well, right? There was something like maybe 3,000 or 4,000, if memory serves, that's sold in the entire 10-ish year run of these rifles. So they weren't very popular, although they were really cheap. And again, they were released right after the Civil War, so these weren't really used during the war, and they were marketed as hunting rifles. So I'll get into a bit of why I think they weren't very popular. One reason may have been that the caliber might have been thought of as too small. You're talking about a kind of a 45, effectively pistol caliber carbine here, or even a 36 or really 38 caliber, roughly speaking, pistol caliber carbine that's being marketed to hunt deer with. That seems a little bit small. Now, certainly at short ranges it could be done, but maybe not the best tool for the job. Also, when these were sold at the time, they seem to have been sold with barrels much longer than 18 inches. Something like 24 inches, or even longer maybe. And that just may not have been very popular, with a really long rifle that's kind of not very powerful. And then add to that the kind of ungainly handling that we mentioned with the kind of both hands behind the cylinder. Maybe not the best thing in the world, both in terms of ergonomics and power. When you could go out and buy, a 54 caliber or a 45 caliber or something, rifled muzzleloader that was going to be more powerful with a hotter powder charge and maybe a heavier weight bullet and things like that. And so there were more practical options on the market at the time that may have been cheaper, but more powerful, right, for taking deer and other game. And another reason, of course, is this. Now, this is a Winchester 1873. This is a copy by Uberti. This one's in 357 or 38. But at the time that the Remington carbine came out, the Winchester Model 1866, which was this rifle's predecessor, was already out on the market as well. And at the time with the 1866, you could fit something like 15 shots of the 44 rimfire into that rifle. And of course, it cycled a lot faster. Whereas with the revolving carbine, you could only fit 6 rounds. Of course, the revolving carbine has the advantage, maybe, of being able to use both cartridges and cap and ball through swapping the cylinder, because they did ship with cartridge cylinders, in fact, or they would ship with both, so that the end customer would have the option sometimes. But really, while this was and still is a more expensive rifle, it's far superior in terms of the firepower you could lay down. You could hold 10, 12 shots, depending on the length of the barrel and the magazine tube. And then at the time, these were in 4440 or a couple of other cartridges following the 1866, talking specifically about the 73 here. And 4440 is almost as powerful, or roughly as powerful, as a 45 Colt. So you're talking a pretty powerful cartridge. You could carry 10 or 12 of them, so about double the capacity of the revolver carbine. And these just had the market reputation in the same way that Colt did in the revolver space. But at any rate, there seemed to be a few factors that maybe drove the lack of popularity of the Remington carbine. And another reason could have been that the production numbers were just so low that they weren't very available compared to a Winchester rifle or any number of front stuffer muzzleloader rifles, right? And you can see really the lineage between the 1858 pistol, which here I have my Santa Barbara copy here, right down to the carbine, right? That's really the exact same frame that's been copied over with simply a longer barrel. In this case of this reproduction, the ramrod is roughly the same length and everything. On the real rifles back in the 19th century, that ramrod was quite a bit longer to give you some more leverage to load load the chambers. But as you can see, right, it's obvious that essentially you just took an 1858 pistol or pistol frame and kind of hacked a rifle out of it. So kind of an interesting set of design choices. Another change of scenery. I'm going to break this down a little bit. I'm not going to take it completely apart like I've done with other guns in past videos, but I do want to show you a couple of key differences between the carbine here and the standard 1858 pistol. And another thing I kind of forgot to mention, a small advantage that this rifle has over a Winchester, maybe some contemporary muzzleloaders, is that this weighs only about 5 pounds. So it's an incredibly lightweight rifle, which might come in handy when you're having to huff it a long distance or in rough terrain or something like that. Okay, so now I've taken the stock off of this gun, which is actually held on by not one but 2, 3 screws, and you also have to remove the trigger guard so that it smoothly comes off, which is just held on by a single screw, just like the pistol. So I've taken one grip off of my Case Hardened 58 here. Yes, I switched guns. And then I've taken the stock off of this one to just really show you the main difference between these and how Remington achieved the same basic design with a kind of a straight stock instead of having a curved grip. So of course you have the mainspring on the standard 58. And see if we can demonstrate it being compressed there. Tension is applied to the spring by this screw in the grip. There's no such screw in this setup, so there's no need to have a tension screw on the rifle version. But it has the same kind of bowed upward shape. When we pull this hammer back, you can see that it creeps downward and raises back up again. And it's held in place by kind of a nut and bolt situation. So you have a nut on the inside and a bolt on the outside, and that bolt lies underneath of the trigger guard, actually. So if you want to take this apart, you want to have some kind of a wrench to hold the nut in place and unscrew this. But it's far easier, I have to say, to take this apart, in my opinion, than to take the pistol apart, because you don't have to kind of knock it out of a slot down here. It's just held on by a nut and bolt, so you can just kind of unscrew it. So there's a design flaw with this rifle that I was just reminded of putting the stock back on. And that is when you load the rifle with the ramrod, you might put some extra stress on the stock here, or at least the interface between the tang and the stock, and you can see there's a chip in it right here. That might have been at least partially caused by kind of the stress force of that ramming action right as the rifle's tipped up and the stock is placed on a workbench or table, and as you're pressing down on it, the receiver is kind of moving around in the stock a little bit. So to kind of try to mitigate that, you might load the cylinders off the gun, or otherwise tighten down your screws and avoid using lead that's too hard. So just something to keep in mind. You might have an issue like I did here, where it's chipped on one side from use, really. Here we are running some smokeless 45 Colt cowboy action loads out of the conversion cylinder. So what's the takeaway? Basically, your cap and ball and 45 Colt are a little bit more accurate. I was also shifting the sights around a little bit up and down as I was trying different loads. So I think I started low and then shifted the sights a little bit higher. In any case, your black powder loads whether cartridge or cap and ball are going to be a little more centered, at least the way that I have the rifle sighted in, whereas my smokeless was hitting high. So it's just differences in loads. This happens, but in general, you can see that the rifle produces, pretty good groups. And again, remember, this is all from standing, and I'm not trying for precision shooting here. As you can see, most of my shooting was fairly rapid, so I wasn't really going for that too much. But it produces acceptable results at 25 yards, I think. For an open-sighted, kind of awkward rifle, it's certainly more accurate than I would have ever expected. Here's a little bit better representation of the rifle's potential for accuracy. This is when I initially had bought it, and I was doing some sighting in and load tests and stuff like that. And this is, I think, 1 or 2 shots in the same hole. This is a separate group. This is at least 1, 2, 3, 4 shots, all kind of strung right next to each other. And again, this is at 25 yards, and then you have a couple up here that were flyers or strays, I suppose. But the point is the rifle's capable of quite incredible accuracy at fairly short ranges. Of course, all of this opens up at longer range, and again, this is all from standing position. I hope you enjoyed this look at the Remington 1858 carbine by Uberti. If you'd like to see more of this type of content, hit that like and subscribe button. I'd really appreciate it. And then if you'd like to get some of the gear that you might have seen in this video or past videos, visit my Etsy shop. It's linked in the description. There you can find things like 45 caliber revolver cartridge boxes, ejector tools for your conversion cylinder, or paper cartridge boxes, among other things. So give me a look. Anyhow, that's all I've got for this video. I'll see you in the next one. Bye.